go ahead and get into the economy. Kurt Nimmo on Monday wrote an article saying that Ben Bernanke was going to announce basically QE3 through this new TWIST program. And Kurt, by reaching and researching IMF and World Bank documents, was able to predict that it would be called TWIST, or basically going back to an early 1960s program to manipulate the bond market. And the stock market responded today by plunging by 391 points, or technically 400 points. The global markets also tumbled by 4%. And Zolik, the head of the World Bank, said that the world is now in the danger zone. And the grand poobah of globalism, George Soros, who said during the 2008 crisis that he was having a great crisis, fleecing governments and the general population with his insider knowledge, has now told us that we're already in a double-dip recession. Well, every economist I've talked to has documented that we never left the recession, and a recession for more than a year with the type of job losses we've had is really a depression. So we've been in a depression now for more than 3 years, so we don't need that Nazi sympathizer and supporter who sold out his own people, George Soros, to tell us that we are in a recession. Continuing, obviously, stocks ended down lower. And why is all of this? Well, Moody's yesterday downgraded big banks on changes of policy, downgraded Bank of America, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, and others. So the system downgraded itself as an attempt to panic the public. The head of the IMF, based out of France, came out and said yesterday, unless there's more hyperinflationary moves in QE3, that the world would basically go into a depression. Now, the very same banksters did this in 2008, back in October. They said, give us unlimited trillions in taxpayer money, or there'll be a depression. And then every few years, they run the same scam over and over again. And again, here is this article by Kurt Nimmo that came out a few days ago dealing with this. And Kurt wrote another article, Operation Twist and Shout, Fed launches stealth attack on pensions. And he breaks down how QE3 and this new long-term U.S. Treasury bond will actually destroy the value of U.S. pensions, including the government pension system known as Social Security. Peter Schiff, who I interviewed today on the radio, told MSNBC today, and we have the article up at Infowars.com, that the Fed will turn to QE3 in failed bid to prevent economic depression. And that's basically what this twist will do. By pushing people into long-term bonds, that will induce banks to loan out more money, which will cause inflation, which is another form of QE3. Continuing with this news, there's a big census report out that recession is taking a major toll on young adults, and that there is massive unemployment in the youth population, much higher than it is in other groups. So that's basically it with the economic news. We're seeing the private banking cartel tell the Europeans that either you give up all national sovereignty that's left to the IMF and World Bank and allow a financial dictatorship to be established, or you're going to basically face total economic implosion. The problem is every time you give in to these terroristic financial threats, you are simply incrementally brought into greater levels of economic bondage and depression. Best to go ahead and write off the 1.5 quadrillion in derivatives that have been created and destroy the globalist bankers, no matter how painful it is, and then rebuild from that point, because the path we're being taken down is clearly rack and ruin and leads us into a Weimar Republic type scenario with a global government, a private global government run by the banksters. Now, getting into other news, I know Aaron Dykes sitting in for me Monday night on Infowars Nightly News broke this down. And since then, we've sent out Darrin McBreen and Rob Jacobson to file a report with the good, the bad, and the ugly here in Austin. Some people are aware of this as a police state power grab. Others are willing to give up their liberty for security. But, of course, Benjamin Franklin pointed out you'll get neither. When you give up liberty, you get tyranny. But I wanted to show you this graph. USA Today had a vote. Do you agree with the NFL's head-to-toe pat-down, the groping of your wife's breast, the grabbing of your genitals? And if you add up the numbers, only 11% agreed with the TSA police state groping. 4% said, don't tase me, bro. 48% said this is an invasion of privacy, and 37% said they would just stay home. So if you average that together, 85% are against it. And we find that 85% want to abolish the private Federal Reserve. We find that over 85%, right at about 90%, don't believe the official JFK story. Over and over again, Angus and Reid, New York Times poll 5 years ago, 83% believe the government's covering up the truth of 9/11. In every poll, I don't believe just one poll or two polls or 5 polls or 100 polls. In thousands of polls that we track, day to day, week to week, year to year, in thousands of polls, over 80% of the population, well, hell, Congress has a 9% approval rating. That's 91% don't agree with the system. But in thousands of polls, above 80% don't buy a damn thing they're told by this pack of known liars. And that's the good news. The awakening has happened, but people just don't have confidence in themselves yet. They don't feel like they're the majority. They don't feel like they're in the right. They feel like they're in the minority, which isn't true. But a minority who's in the right is the majority, as Barry Goldwater said. He also said that when you're talking about fighting tyranny, silence isn't golden, it's yellow. And with that, I want to go to this report filed by Infowars.com, reporters on the NFL Grope-Downs taking place. And then coming up, Sherry Tenpenny, the doctor, breaking down what's happening with the vaccine carnage. And then we will also get to Ed Asner. Stay with us after we talk to Darrin McBreen. Darrin McBreen, tell us what's happening.
Thank you, Alex. Recently, Homeland Security announced that they will extend their Stasi-style grope-downs on innocent, law-abiding American citizens who simply want to watch a football game. Now, we're here at DKR Stadium in the heart of Austin, Texas, to ask football fans how they feel about the new Homeland Security pat-downs.
Having people pat down before they come in, I don't think that would, like, the cost and benefit doesn't make sense. If they have to wait in this big crowd and big lines and then still get checked just to go in to see, like, their favorite players, it might create some personal problems.
I feel like people are always going to find a way if they want to do bad things.
If someone really wants to do something, most likely they're going to do it and they're going to find a way to sneak it through. But the more roadblocks you put up there, I guess the harder it's going to be, the more you might deter somebody from trying.
Really, I think it's kind of going overboard.
I'm not really for it. I don't think that it really will get anything accomplished.
You know, you had the guy who tased the individual, and that situation was big, and I don't want to get tased, so in a way, it's, hey, that's security. It's what needs to happen. But in another way, it's really intrusive.
Having Homeland Security at the entrance of the gates could potentially make it safer, but I also feel like it's a violation of privacy.
Last Friday, Alex Jones called for a boycott of the NFL in his attempt to prevent America from continuing down its path to becoming a nightmare police state.
Don't be part of this ritual of corruption. Boycott it, and even if you don't go to NFL games, talk about boycotting it.
This USA Today poll on September 16th clearly demonstrates that most Americans disagree with these aggressive procedures. But the federal government and Homeland Security don't care. Even though it's a clear violation of our constitutionally guaranteed Fourth Amendment rights, they're moving forward with their plans. You know, a lot of privacy advocates are in an outrage as far as, and this goes with the TSA and airports as well, about children that are being subjected to the same pat-downs. And where do you draw the line, and what's your feelings about, you know, taking your kids to a football game and they have to be patted down as well?
I can understand the reasoning for doing that, just because terrorist attacks can come through any ways and they would do anything just to get whatever accomplished. But I think that at football games, doing that to children is just is a little bit over the line.
I don't think children need to be pat down.
It would be an arbitrary age around 13, I think would be acceptable. Underneath that age, I think you should give children their space.
Yeah, if you've got kids with you, especially, you bring your son, your daughter. I don't know. It's a nice feeling that, okay, we had a little bit of a hassle, slowed the line down, but I feel safe.
I would hope that, reasonable minds would prevail, and they would just say, an 8-year-old kid is not going to be carrying a bomb of some sort. I would hope it doesn't get that far.
If I have something where I don't feel like I should be touched, or I had a situation where I've been touched before and I didn't appreciate that one, I'm clearly not going to appreciate somebody who feels like they deserve to have to do it for security reasons. Like, that's not a good reason to be that intrusive to my body.
The unholy alliance between the NFL and the federal government is merely the next stop on the road to transforming America into one giant prison camp, a tremendous price to pay. And as you could see, most people don't feel it makes them any safer. I'm Darrin McBreen for Infowars Nightly News. Alex, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Darrin. Did you hear the one guy? It's a nice feeling. Yeah, it's a great feeling to watch men and women grab your 3-year-old daughter and actually check their crotch. No, that's a horrible feeling. You'll basically let these people violate your basic rights. Now, I want to hit some interesting science news before I get into the really hardcore news here tonight. And that's that the speed of light has been broken by scientists. It is the most famous scientific equation of all time, and but last night it emerged that Einstein's theory of relativity may be wrong. And it goes on to say that scientists at CERN claim that they have measured particles faster than light. Think about that. I have no doubt that there are particles faster than light. I mean, hell, 60-something years ago, they were telling the public that the speed of sound couldn't be broken. But CERN refused to release documents, but they got leaked, proving that global warming was not man-made and that it was mainly solar radiation. Duh, the sun heating the earth. I don't need scientists to tell me that. Common sense. So unfortunately, I can't believe a word that comes out of CERN. But no doubt, just because Einstein tells us nothing's faster than light, give me a break. Every scientist that comes along knows it all. So I thought we would cover that information. Very, very interesting. I'd love to believe CERN, but these are the same folks that tell me that Al Gore is the second coming of Christ. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to buy into that right now. Now, getting back into some other important news here today. Mr. Cameron, the Prime Minister of England, who loves puppies, so war is okay, has gone to the United Nations, and the UN agrees. The new model of global corporate colonialism is to use what Western nations' money and blood to empower their corporate takeover of the world, and all they've got to do is go fund in Syria or in Libya or in Egypt or anywhere else, or the Ivory Coast, for that matter, of Africa, to fund rebels who go around murdering and killing people, and then have the UN invade in the name of defending the rebels. But I saw another headline today in the London Telegraph about NATO is stationing drones all over North Africa, including Libya, to bomb other countries to fight al-Qaeda. But it's admitted that al-Qaeda was the rebel group the British, French, and NATO put in, who've been given control of Tripoli and now the rest of the country, and the fighting is still going on with Gaddafi forces, but they told us a month ago the fighting was over, so it must be true. Again, this is this Orwellian minefield of different conflicting lies, and as a good little globalist, I guess we're all supposed to just buy into all these contradictions of logic, but I'm sorry I can't do it.